Welcome to the study session where we are breaking down the BCBA 6th edition test content outline. Today we are diving into verbal operants.
Oh, this is one of my favorite topics. You know why? Because it's all about how we actually get people to communicate. And the exam loves it.
That's right. Verbal operants fall under Domain D, behavior change procedures. They make up a solid chunk of your exam. Roughly 12 to 15 questions. If you don't master these, you're leaving points on the table.
And here is the thing, these aren't just vocabulary words. The exam will ask you to identify which operant is happening in a real scenario. So you have to know the difference between a mand, a tact, an echoic, an intraverbal, and a textual.
Let's start with a mand. A mand is a request. It's controlled by a motivating operation. If the client is hungry and says cookie, that's a mand. The reinforcer is the cookie itself.
I love that. And the exam trap? They'll give you a scenario where someone says water but they're not thirsty. That's not a mand. That's probably a tact or an echoic. Always check the MO.
Great point. Next is the tact. A tact is a label. It's controlled by a nonverbal stimulus. So if you see a dog and say dog, that's a tact. The reinforcer is generalized, like praise or attention.
Right. And here's where the exam will try to trip you up. If someone says red when they see a red ball, that's a tact. But if they say red because you just said red, that's an echoic. The controlling variable is the difference.
Exactly. Echoic is a verbal operant where the speaker repeats what they hear. It's point-to-point correspondence. So if I say ball, and the client says ball, that's an echoic. The reinforcer is usually social.
And textual is reading written words. No auditory stimulus, just print. So if a client sees the word cat and says cat, that's textual. The exam loves to mix up textual and echoic. Remember, echoic is hearing, textual is seeing.
Now, intraverbal. This is the conversational operant. It's controlled by verbal stimuli, but no point-to-point correspondence. So if I say, twinkle, twinkle little, and you say star, that's an intraverbal.
And this is huge for verbal behavior intervention. You teach mands first because they directly benefit the learner. Then tacts, then echoics, then intraverbals. The exam will ask you about that sequence.
Let's bring in a real-world analogy. Think of a light switch. Mands are like flipping the switch because you want the light on. Tacts are like noticing the light is on and saying light. Echoic is someone saying light and you repeating it. Intraverbal is someone saying what's in the sky and you saying light.
That's perfect. And here is the clinical example. I had a client who only mandayed. He'd say juice when thirsty. But he couldn't tact juice when he saw it. So we paired the mand with the tact. When he mandayed, I'd say juice and he'd echo. Then I'd show the juice and say what's this? That built the tact.
That's a great example of shaping verbal behavior. And remember, reinforcement is key. Every operant has a different reinforcer. Mands get the specific item. Tacts get social praise. Echoics get social reinforcement. Intraverbals get continuation of the conversation.
And don't forget ethics. If you're teaching mands, you have to ensure the client has access to the item. You can't withhold a cookie just to teach a mand. That's coercive. Always pair with reinforcement.
Absolutely. The BCBA 6th edition task list also emphasizes functional communication training. That's all about replacing problem behavior with a mand. So if a client hits to get a break, you teach them to mand break.
And that ties back to reinforcement. The mand is reinforced by the break. Problem behavior gets put on extinction. The exam will give you a scenario and ask you to identify the replacement operant. It's almost always a mand.
So to wrap up, mand is request, tact is label, echoic is repeat, intraverbal is conversation, textual is reading. Know the controlling variable for each.
And practice with scenarios. If someone says more because they want more bubbles, that's a mand. If they say bubbles because they see bubbles, that's a tact. If they say bubbles because you said it, that's an echoic. If you say what do you play with, and they say bubbles, that's an intraverbal.
For more practice questions, visit www.bcbmaexam.com.
See ya.
Bye.